Yeah, so from our last exploits with the Ineos Grenadier, which is an ultra modern brand new 4x4, we decided to wind it back a bit and show you guys what we use for our own personal entertainment. And we are now reviewing some much older cars dating back to the 1980s, I think in your case, and early 90s in my case. So we'd like to introduce to the channel the Disco Bucky and Diesel.
So this is Diesel. She's a 1982 Mercedes Gelandewagen GD300 short wheelbase. She's got a 3-litre normally aspirated 5-cylinder diesel engine, and she cranks out a mighty 65 kilowatts, which is 89 horsepower. So this has optional power steering. It's hard to believe that these cars were supplied without. I don't think I've seen a South African one without power steering. Air conditioning on these cars is very rare from the factory. I have an aftermarket setup in here that works very nicely.
Quick question, is this run electric fans?
No, these electric fans belong to the air conditioning system. It's got a visco fan.
So it runs a visco.
Yeah.
Excellent. And this is a 5-cylinder?
5-cylinder, 3-litre.
Normally
65 kilowatts, normally aspirated. No turbos, no electronics, no nothing.
But it's a machine. I mean, these things run untold kilometers. I don't think they have an end.
They're 1,000,000-kilometer engines if they get their maintenance. Regular oil changes and put the clean fuel in it and they'll go forever.
Well, it definitely looks like it's going to run forever. Let's take a look at the interior.
Well, the interior of this car is notable in being absent. So this vehicle was ordered with the option of rear seat delete. So it essentially was a panel van with windows, and it still is a panel van with windows. Very much the interior fittings all come from Mercedes-Benz trucks. The steering wheel design, the instrumentation, the whole dashboard layout. So very much a utilitarian vehicle. Originally designed as a military vehicle. This is obviously a civilian version of it, but this really is agricultural. There's absolutely no concessions to luxury other than relatively comfortable seats. Just something else to see. No carpets in this car. These are the original rubber mats that covered the floors. And then these are obviously here just for protection. So extremely basic vehicle. And then you can also see the console underneath there is the interior unit of the aftermarket air conditioning system. Keep me cool while I'm driving.
My usual space test, being 6'4" and mildly overweight, means that I need some space, and it's not bad in here, I must say. I think I can sit here for a while.
You've got more rearward movement, but there's stuff behind the seat, so you can't right now.
Yeah, so nice grab handle, radio for communications. This, you've got to get a shot of this radio. That thing is so old school. I mean, let me just grab that and have a look here. Check that out. Super retro. Pioneer auto reverse. Now, for some of you watching this, that is called a tape deck. Now, you might have to go Google that if you were born after 2000, but yeah. All right, so this is my trusty old 1993 Hilux 2.4 diesel, or at least it used to be a 2.4 diesel. I've had it for 15 years and many adventures. You know, when they tell you that the legendary 2.4, the 2L Toyota motor will run forever, forever means roughly 360,000 k's. The 2.4 gave up and started pushing oil everywhere. So I took the plunge and replaced it with a 5L. I will do a bit of an in-depth deep dive on whether you should or should not do that in a later video. But it also used to make roughly 60 kilowatts and no torque. Anybody who's ever driven one of these things will know that it is a constant battle with momentum and traffic. It's slow as all hell. It has never been heavy on diesel, roughly 10 liters to 100 k's, but you can't be in a hurry. It's not the kind of vehicle that you want to drive with. If you're late for a meeting, you're going to hate yourself. All right, and under the hood, as I said, it's now 3-litre 5L, and what you'll also notice is that it's been turbocharged. So it's not really a turbocharger, it's more like an altitude compensator, but it really has had a profound effect on the vehicle. It's also taken 8 months to get it right. But yeah, so far so good. It runs a dual battery system, as you can see, and we'll chat a little bit about the Victron solar system later.
On the subject of altitude compensator, we are at 5,000 feet here, 1,800 meters. So relatively high altitude, quite power sapping for non-turbo engines.
Yeah, I think most people don't realize that they're in sunny South Africa, at the reef is what we call it. You know, we're very, very high up, and you know, throughout the years, motor manufacturers have had to adapt vehicles specifically for our climate. You know, as Christian pointed out, they just fall flat in their face. You know, down at the coast they run great, but up here, something like this really has a big difference. So like I said, intercooled and turbocharged. We've had some overheating issues, which I think we've sorted out now. And yeah, today is its first trip, 4x4 trip proper. So we're really looking forward to getting to Baraka and showing you guys what these things are all about. Yeah, as you can see here also, we don't have any air conditioning. It did have air conditioning at some point, but I can just imagine with that 2.4 with the aircon on, you could probably walk faster. But that's been removed, as well as no power steering. So you'll notice at the end of the day, I think I'm going to be looking a lot worse for wear than old Fig over there with his power assisted steering. Also with this vehicle, they didn't come with diff locks. This one has got an Aussie locker mechanical rear differential lock on it. And we'll explain a bit more about that later for those of you that don't know what that is. But for 4x4 where we go, definitely a rear diff lock is a must. You simply won't get, you won't get far in the places we drive at without the assistance of a rear diff lock. So also in here, not a lot to see. Like I said, no aircon, no power steering. You are the power in the steering yourself. Very basic setup. Low range 4x4 bench seat, which could be more comfortable, but like I said, I've had it for 15 years and yeah, I'll fit in it properly. Not a horrible place to be, but there isn't a lot of space. Typically single cab buckies from that era didn't offer much space. And like I mentioned, not a hell of a lot to see here. Mine's got a CD player in it, so being newer than Fig's tank over there. Low range, good old gear lock. So basically you use this, put it in reverse, which now obviously doesn't want to go into, and then you clack that on, and now your vehicle is less prone to being taken from you without your permission. Like I mentioned here earlier, very basic controls. Fan over here, the heater works really well in winter, an old quartz clock. And like I mentioned, low range. When you engage low range here, the center diff locks engages as well, obviously giving you the better traction when needed. And yeah, very space in here. This is our aircon, small little quarter windows, open them there, and I put some fresh air on you.
Under the G-Wagon and have a look at what makes a G-Wagon a G-Wagon. So starting with a nice healthy sized bash plate protecting your engine, which is very high. Your sump is very high. The sump on this engine is got a few more liters capacity in it than the passenger car version of this engine, so built for off-road use. As you can see, we've got seriously beefy tie rods on this car. I think some modern soft four-wheel drives, that's what their drive shafts look like. Good, nice, beefy axle and diff, and you'll notice that on all four corners it's suspended on coil springs. Much more comfortable ride, and nice big beefy front diff and axle. The steering damper is tucked up right out of the way on the rear tie rod, and you'll also notice how high up the engine and the gearbox and the whole drivetrain sit in the chassis, so everything's protected actually by the chassis, which, as you can also see, is built like a truck. These stabilizer arms are because it's suspended on coil springs instead of leaf springs. You'll see the difference on the Hilux now. The Hilux is more than 10 years newer than the G-Wagon, But the first thing you might notice under here is that she is suspended on cart springs, also known as leaf springs, both front and back. Quite a lot like an old series Land Rover. But apart from that, she looks like she's laid out pretty similar to the G-Wagon. And same kind of beefy type of axles, nice big tie rod ends, and the engine and the transmission tucked right up out of the way in between the chassis rails. Right, well, looks like there's nothing else left to do but to go and play at Baraka again.
Welcome to Baraka. I thought we'd quickly just explain something with the Hilux. The front diffs need to be locked manually. So basically all you do is take it there, give it a turn, and we're now engaging the front wheel to the axle. So modern cars have got automatic lockers. This is old school.
The G-Wagon, just like the Hilux, is part-time four-wheel drive, and Heinz just shown you how he has to engage the hubs, because otherwise he's not getting drive to the front hubs. The G-Wagon has permanently driven hubs, so I don't need to do that when I switch to four-wheel drive, because it's also part-time four-wheel drive. But the price you pay for that is the entire front axle assembly is turning all the time, which obviously adds to inertia. So that increases fuel consumption and probably uses a bit of my 65 kilowatts.
Here we are again at Baraka. Christian and I are taking out our own vehicles. So yeah, two very different answers to the same question. Here's a good old log crossing we did with the Grenadier as well. Both these vehicles much easier to get across there. I was actually surprised to see how big that car was. You'll notice here that both these cars very similar in width. So no hassles navigating this. The Grenadier on the other hand was extremely wide. Really bad to walk, not so bad to drive. This obstacle looks a hell of a lot worse than it was the last time. The rains obviously have taken their toll here, changes the track every time. So somebody had dug out some big holes there, probably getting stuck in the rain. No such problems for the Gelandewagen. I've seen that thing go places where it's insane. I've had this bakkie for 15 years, and in all my 4x4 exploits we've only gotten stuck 3 times, and twice was trying to follow that Gelandewagen up the second loop here at Baraka, which we will get to in a different episode. Okay, so this thing is insane. Every time I go down here, you got to take a deep breath. This thing is so steep. It really is to prep you for something further up the trail. But also every time we get here, this seems worse. That concrete bit there, without that, there's no ways you'd get a vehicle down here. So I figured a little bit of a moment here with it going sideways. Just shows you no diff locks means no traction. So fortunately for me, my bakkie has got an Aussie locker, which is a mechanical diff lock at the back, so its natural position is locked, so I don't have to fiddle with it or decide whether it goes on or off. It automatically kicks in when needed. Right, and like Fig also mentioned, being a long wheelbase, much less issues going down these steep hills than the short wheelbases.
So there's the difference between a short and a long wheelbase. You didn't lift the wheel at all.
And this is something you'll see with the long wheelbases, the good old wheel lift. So this was worth the walk. You know, as with all 4x4ing, it's good practice to walk your obstacle. This has changed a lot over the years. We used to go straight across. The lay of the land surely has changed, and you can also see how this has been washed away and also haven't been used for some time.
This has been washed out quite badly, but we'll get through here.
This is going to be hairy.
This section's been closed, don't tell anyone.
Gosh.
And it's been washed out quite badly, but we've just walked it, we can do it, so we're going to do it.
All right, cool.
Good guy, Grenadier couldn't do that.
And here we are entering Elephant Hill. This is a very nice obstacle. It's a good confidence builder as well. Lots of traction, so it's not too scary. But like, once again, the G-Wagon having absolutely no issues getting up and down here. Neither did the Hilux. But yeah, super nice obstacle. At the top here, it's a bit of a heart and mouth moment because as you crest, all you see is blue sky, or in this case, some clouds. So this is on the way down, where you need to line it up correctly. It's a down and right situation, so you can't just go straight down, but you can't see until you get over that section there, and then you kind of get a glimpse of where you're headed. But Fig taking this one nicely all the way down the hill. Alright, and then the Hilux obviously being on leaf springs, a little bit more of a bumpy ride. But the flex on these things aren't too bad, bearing in mind this vehicle is suspension wise, apart from some lengthened shackles, it is bone stock. So I have not changed anything or put any fancy leaf springs in. So it'll still carry a ton plus load, and it does most of the off-road stuff no problem. Ground clearance on this thing is insane. I don't think I've ever bottomed it out in anything, so never had an issue with any of the 4x4 tracks where we go. Some rock crawling and that kind of stuff, really good ground clearance. Alright, so the other nice thing about this being the diesel version is that it has a very short diff ratios. So going downhill, first gear, low range, is super slow against compression. Also very slow going up, so you can really pick your track quite nicely, pick your line properly, and get over the obstacles without giving too much gas and going too fast where it starts to bounce and lose traction, and obviously eventually you will damage and break your vehicle. So nice thing about Baraka, lots of very technical, sharp turns up and downhill, where you really have to pick your line properly, do, in my case, a couple of forwards and backwards, 2 and 3 point turns, but you can't just drive down. Some of them are super tight. Even the short wheelbase Gelandewagen, which is obviously way better at getting around those sharp corners, even Fig had his hands full on some of them, where he really had to pick his line properly and do the good old forward and backward to get it around. This is traditionally the halfway point or lunch spot at Baraka. Really nice little spot under a tree there. You can give yourself and the cars a bit of a breather. Like we mentioned earlier, it was a proper hot day, 34-35 degrees plus. We were hungry and thirsty. So this is another benefit of the disco bakkie, also known as it's also known as the Taj Mabaki. This is a bedroom and a kitchen. The bedroom does look like an adolescent teenager's version of a clean room, but you know what, nobody's watching. So yes, this machine can do everything you've seen today, and I can also sleep in it. Got a fridge, place to make some food, everything you need for 4x4ing in Africa. Here we found some friends of the 4x4ing world, some very friendly chaps from Rustenburg, showcasing the dexterity of the good old Hilux. There are 3 vehicles there with 3 different engines. One had the stock 2.2 litre, one with a Lexus V8, and one with an old school Ford SX V6. pretty is it here?
Beautiful. Beautiful.
I know for some of our, I think the English viewers, it'll be winter there now.
Oh, they even had
Yeah,
snow this year.
guys, it's snow in that. Well, it's probably a good 34 degrees here in South Africa at the moment. It's cooking. No, rising climb. Now, this thing's been closed for a while. We haven't been up there in a couple of years now. We're busy putting a scouting party together to get up there. That is known as the top section or the top loop, and it is probably 50% tougher than anything in the bottom loop. It is proper hardcore. There are some mad up and down hills. So yeah, we'll get that in a different movie, but we're gonna have to get a bit of a fleet together and vehicles with winches, as it does get very, very tough up there. Then here's Fig engaging one of his diff locks. So it's a mechanical system. So you pull the lever, and then as it diff turns a couple of times, it will then engage. So you pull that lever up to engage it, push it down to disengage, and obviously the back one's for the rear and the front one's for the front. Right, and this is close to the end. We've named this one the Camel's Back. Just when you think the trail is over, they throw this at you. So super steep uphill, very steep down with a 90-degree turn at the bottom, which then leads you into the second half of the obstacle, where there's a very awkward off-camber side of the mountain, left hand with loose rocks. So very, very tough. Also very difficult with vehicles that do not have power steering. In my case, going up is not too much of a problem, but once you start descending, all the weight of the vehicle goes onto the front axle, and you then need to turn the wheel. So there's a big difference between going up and down. On the tar, it's not too bad. The thing turns properly, it's no issue. And like I mentioned, going up, not a problem. But once you start descending, with that weight transfer on the front, you really got to hold on to it.
Yeah, so we're just reminding ourselves what a rough and difficult trail this is, and so much of this last stretch that one forgets, because by the time you're leaving, you're just trying to get out, and you forget that actually half the trail is on this side that we've just done through.
Half the trail is in the last 25%.
Yeah, and it's rough. It's much rougher the back stretch.
Yeah, and we'll discuss some of it in the voiceover. But some of those downhills, there's extreme off cambers and angles that are really tough to navigate.
And turns at the bottom with loose rocks.
Yeah, so it's definitely got some attitude. Baraka, for those of you who don't know, check them out. If you live in South Africa, or this is an hour away from Joburg. There's a beautiful campsite here as well where you can stay. But it's one of our favorite places. But don't come here with your daily, because you might you might not make work on Monday. It is for really extreme off-road enthusiasts.
And if you don't have lots of clearance around your bodywork, you'll pay the plastic tax here.
Yes. Well, cheers everybody.